Imagine a king, not just a ruler, but a whirlwind of ambition and vengeance. A figure so formidable he would bring an empire to its knees. This is the story of Che Bong Nga, the last great king of Champa, and his audacious campaigns against the mighty Đại Việt. Welcome back to our channel, where today we dive into one of the most dramatic and often overlooked conflicts in Southeast Asian history. Our story begins in the late 14th century. The Kingdom of Champa, located in what is now central and southern Vietnam, had a long and complex relationship with its northern neighbor, Đại Việt, centered around the capital Thăng Long, modern-day Hanoi. For centuries, these two powers had clashed, their borders shifting like sand dunes in the wind. But by the 1360s, Đại Việt, under the Tran dynasty, was showing signs of weakness. Internal corruption was rampant, the peasantry was restless, and the royal court was fractured by infighting. For a shrewd and ambitious leader, this was an opportunity too good to miss. Enter Che Bong Nga, ascending to the Champa throne around 1360. He wasn't just another king. He was a military genius, a charismatic leader who harbored a deep-seated desire to restore Champa's former glory and avenge past humiliations. He saw the rot in the Tran dynasty and knew the time to strike was now. He began by consolidating his own power, uniting the disparate Cham principalities under his banner and building a formidable army and, crucially, a powerful navy. His initial forays were probing attacks, testing the defenses and resolve of Đại Việt, but these were mere preludes to his grand design. In 1371, the real storm broke. In a move that shocked the entire region, Che Bong Nga launched a full-scale naval invasion, sailing his fleet directly up the Red River Delta towards the heart of the enemy, the capital, Thang Long. The Tran court was caught completely off guard. Their defenses, designed to repel land-based attacks from the south, were unprepared for a naval assault of this magnitude. The Cham forces, seasoned and disciplined, landed and swept through the unprepared defenders. The city of Thăng Long, a symbol of Đại Viet's power and cultural achievement for centuries, was sacked. The unimaginable had happened. Che Bong Nga's soldiers plundered the city, taking immense wealth, precious artifacts, and even members of the royal family captive. They then burned the capital to the ground before withdrawing, leaving a smoldering ruin and a shattered dynasty in their wake. The psychological impact was devastating. The Tran Emperor Thang had died just before the attack, and his successor was weak and ineffective. The court was in chaos. How could their sacred capital, the center of their world, fall so easily? Che Bong Nga had not just defeated an army. He had shattered an empire's belief in its own invincibility. But he was far from finished. This was just the beginning of a nearly 2-decade-long campaign. The sacking of Thăng Long in 1371 was not a one-off event. It was the first of 3 times Che Bong Nga would occupy the Đại Việt capital. He launched relentless attacks year after year, using a brilliant combination of naval power and swift land assaults. He was a master of surprise and psychological warfare, appearing where he was least expected, his name becoming a source of terror throughout the north. The Tran dynasty scrambled to respond. They raised new armies and appointed new generals, but they were always one step behind. In 1377, in a desperate attempt to end the threat once and for all, the Tran Emperor Thang personally led a massive army south to invade Champa. It was a disastrous mistake. Che Bong Nga, using his knowledge of the terrain, lured the Đại Việt army into a trap. At the Battle of Du Ban, the Tran army was annihilated, and the emperor himself was killed in the fighting. It was an unprecedented catastrophe for Đại Việt. With the emperor dead and their main army destroyed, Đại Việt teetered on the brink of collapse. Che Bong Nga pressed his advantage, marching north once again. In 1378, for the second time, he entered and sacked Thăng Long. The cycle of destruction continued, with the Cham forces seemingly unstoppable. For over a decade, it looked as if the Kingdom of Champa might actually conquer and absorb its northern rival, completely redrawing the map of Southeast Asia. So, what made Che Bong Nga so successful? It wasn't just his military brilliance. He was an expert at exploiting his enemy's weaknesses. He skillfully formed alliances with rebels and disaffected nobles within Đại Việt, turning their internal conflicts to his advantage. His use of a combat arms approach, seamlessly integrating his navy and army, was far ahead of its time for the region. His soldiers were fiercely loyal, inspired by his personal courage and a string of incredible victories. He was, in every sense, a force of nature. The tide, however, eventually began to turn. A new, capable figure emerged in Đại Việt, a general named Ho Quai Lai. While the Tran emperors remained weak puppets, Ho Quai Lai gradually took control of the state and the military, implementing reforms and preparing for a final showdown. The endless warfare had also taken its toll on Champa, and their resources were not infinite. The end for Che Bong Nga came as dramatically as his reign had begun. In 1390, he launched yet another naval expedition against Đại Việt. During the naval battle, a moment of betrayal sealed his fate. One of his own attendants, a man named Ballad, had been reprimanded by the king. Seeking revenge, he defected to the Đại Việt side and revealed the location of Che Bong Nga's royal galley. Armed with this crucial intelligence, the Đại Việt forces, using newly developed firearms, early cannons, focused all their firepower on the king's ship. A cannonball struck and killed Che Bong Nga. The death of their seemingly invincible leader shattered the morale of the Cam forces. They immediately broke off the attack and retreat. The storm had finally passed. Without Che Bong Nga's unifying leadership, Champa quickly fell into internal squabbles and civil war. The momentum was lost forever. Ho Quai Lai, now firmly in control of Đại Việt, seized the opportunity. He pushed south, reclaiming lost territories and eventually deposing the Tran dynasty to found his own Ho dynasty. The threat from Champa was neutralized, and the kingdom would never again reach the heights of power it had under its great warrior king. Che Bong Nga's story is a powerful reminder of how a single, determined individual can change the course of history. For 30 years, he held the fate of 2 kingdoms in his hands. He was a brilliant tactician, a ruthless conqueror, and the last great symbol of Cam power. Though his ultimate goal of conquering Đại Việt failed with his death, his campaigns left an indelible mark on the history of Vietnam, shaking an empire to its core and paving the way for a new dynasty to rise from the ashes. His name, once a source of terror in Thang Long, is now remembered as that of a legendary, if tragic, national hero in the history of Champa. Thank you so much for joining us on this historical deep dive. What do you find most fascinating about the story of Che Bong Nga? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey into the past, please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next adventure. We'll see you next time.